Hi, so I'm finally resuming my podcast interviewing after a bit of a COVID-y episode, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Vidyadasa, aka A.D. Griffiths, yoga teacher, Buddhist teacher, web designer, life coach, book writer, lots and lots of things, lots of fingers in lots of pies. And Vidyadasa was actually one of the first people I met in embodiment. He was the co-lead trainer on the first Embodied Yoga Principles training I did. So I've known him since 2014, and since then we've worked together and got to know each other a bit better. And it's been a really lovely professional relationship. So really great to have you on the show today, V.
Thank you very much, Karin. Yeah, real pleasure to be with you here, and yeah, to have known you all those years. I can't believe it's 8 years. Time flies. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Good to
yeah, and it's a bit like, I'm sort of counting, close to 10 years, and it makes me feel old. But I think maturity is quite a good thing in embodiment. So let's stick with that. And I know you're also a father, and you've written a book called Mindful Thoughts for Fathers, which I'll ask you about as well. So that's loads of things that you're doing now. But as we often do on this podcast, we like to ask what got you into embodiment and or any of the related practices, yoga, Buddhism, embodiment.
Good question. Well, I'm going to go back to teenage years, I think. So probably during sixth form age, which in the UK is kind of around 17, 18, I think. I was really into dance and the visual arts, and I was kind of into breakdancing, through my teens and things like that. I've always been quite physical in some way or another. There's always been some dance, some BMXing, breakdancing, whatever. So physical movement has really been quite a big part of my life, and also in terms of how I've changed my state of being. I think during teenage years, like a lot of teenagers, I kind of hit the whole exam stress and anxiety and relationship stress, and also life purpose stress. What am I doing? Where am I going in my life? What do I want to be doing? And I guess I always kind of wanted to be a visual artist in some way or another, and was doing a lot of photography, painting, as well as all the movement practices as well. But somewhere along the line, part of that kind of stress, and I realized, I need to get a grip on this. I started to learn meditation, and that was it. I was cleaning in the school. My little job after school was cleaning. I was a caretaker with a few other mates. We used to kind of clean rooms and have our hip hop on in the stereo or whatever. And one of the rooms I did was the religious studies room, and I just saw this book about meditation. So I was kind of like, okay. So I kind of snuck that home, not very ethically. I kind of read it, sort of practiced at home, trying to meditate by myself and look at a candle or count my breathing or whatever. And it really brought me to kind of real kind of moments of peace and clarity. And it's like, okay, wow, this is actually really transformative and really positive. So I started to really practice that regularly, and I'd kind of sneak off in my sixth form art things to a little side small room and practice, and really try and build a bit of a practice there. And then along came the rave days, and lots of raving and dancing, all night clubbing and things, and I suppose getting high both legally and illegally in different ways. And I think after the late nights and the downs, in a way, the downs after the highs, I realized I needed to return to meditation. I think I'd lost that a little bit along the way. I was kind of getting into the zone through dance and stuff like that, but realized I wasn't doing a regular practice myself outside of that, and I needed something kind of stabilize the ups and downs and kind of bring me focus. And I think I was really concerned also about what was going on in the world and wanted to kind of make a difference in some way or another, and learning how to stabilize body and mind, and also be kinder and bring positive things out into the world felt very important. So yeah, so I carried on there. And the next steps from there, I did a photography degree. I started a photography degree, but soon realized actually it wasn't it somehow, because I missed something of the breadth of creativity. So I had moved to Scotland. I moved back. That was it. I started going to Buddhist meditation classes in Glasgow in Scotland, and the Glasgow Buddhist Centre. I should really do a fake Scottish accent now, although I am Scottish. I'm from Inverness originally. I should just drop into that. So yeah, and I just remember learning the loving kindness meditation. I was having real anger issues at the time, really frustrated with my dad for something, and it just in one meditation it transformed into a real deep appreciation and love and respect for my father that wasn't there before. And he was like, wow, this stuff is really transformative. So I then went and had the Dalai Lama give a talk. This was 93 when he was over doing talks about global, all the global stuff that was going on and concerns about nuclear things and various planetary stuff. And from there, I kind of committed again quite clearly to kind of Buddhist pathway and yoga and things of that nature. So yeah, maybe I'll pause there.
Wow, quite a nice trajectory, really, a bit more sort of general life than some of our guests who came from some major illness or trauma. And we have quite a lot in common, because I've got a sort of arts background too, and nothing too major in my background, but just got curious, except I picked up the wrong book as a teenager, because it didn't give me the right instructions to get to the calm that you describe. So I gave up for 15 years after that.
Shame.
Yeah,
you made your way back.
Yeah, maybe you just have better karma than me or something.
That's it. Rocky road since, so maybe it's all right.
yeah, and in our embodied community here in the UK, and also the international community of the Embodied Facilitator course, we mainly know you as an embodied yoga principles, yoga and meditation teacher. And there's not that many guests on the show that have like all of those accolades, as well as the creative background. So I'd be quite curious to know how does it all link up for you now? It seems that you found your way in the world with a mixture of creativity and Buddhist ethics and movement. So how does it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's an ever evolving, changing thing, and the relationship between the different parts do move in and out of focus in different ways. Like for many years, I was doing a lot of community artwork projects where we're kind of going into communities and creating carnivals and costumes and really getting involved in helping kids in schools and communities make things, and again, very physical but very creative, and then needed to come at the side of that as well. So then I think, again, that kind of circled around back to yoga meditation. It's always been like creativity and then calm, creativity and calm, and the insight that comes with practice of internal practice, then also relationship with the outside world, the inner world work and the external world work. And of course then we can go, okay, well, where do those boundaries dissolve, and blah 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 blah. Won't disappear down that rabbit warren. No self, etc. Yeah, and I think creativity weirdly led me to web design, because of in the late 90s, I think I had to have a website for my visual art stuff and meditation stuff, and then people start saying, hey, I really like your site, can you make me a site? Start making a site, And then lo and behold, that expression of creativity, and also I suppose it's quite an earthy, practical, logical thing of like, oh, you do this, you put this information here, you communicate what that person's passion is and what their offer is to the world, and that helps them earn a living and then put the things out into the world. So that's kind of cycle of expression and then giving and receiving. And I love being of service in that way. I'm rambling a little bit, but my name Vidyadasa, Dasa means servant or disciple, and Vidya means knowledge. So it's servant and disciple of knowledge. But the knowledge, Vidya, is to do with aesthetic seeing and wisdom and beauty. So it's kind of like being of service to truth and beauty as well. And knowledge in the sense of head knowledge, but also embodied knowledge and, higher knowledge. And the person that ordained me said, your life path now, when I ordain you, is to get to know knowledge and then become knowledge. So in a way, develop knowledge to become wise by being of service to wisdom and then becoming wise through that process. So I've got my life cut out for me, and probably many other lifetimes as well, the rate I'm going, but we'll see. So that kind of pathway is there and links all of it up. There's that overall arching thing of being of service to beauty and truth. And coming back to the yoga, again, the whole internal world of imagery and imagination and creativity and connection of what's in and what's out, and sharing that with others and exploring that. And somewhere along the line, a good friend of mine, Tess Howell, I remember being at a birthday gathering of hers, and Mark Walsh happened to be there as well, because he'd been very close with Tess as well, and we kind of got chatting, whatever. And I think my partner was due to give birth, or maybe even my daughter was 1 at the time or something like that. So we're kind of struggling with the whole I'm a parent or about to become a parent thing or whatever. I remember us having a conversation around that sort of stuff, and I'd seen Mark at an Aikido class, and I kind of had a sense of him kind of like, oh, it looks kind of quite fun, engaging, quite intense. And then we had quite an intense conversation at this meal, and I remember getting a bit affected by something. And then I saw some of the stuff he was posting online. I was like, oh, actually, right, I get him a bit more. I really understand where he's coming from, and some of his, I guess his reflections on life and engagement with the world through embodiment practices and teaching. And then I went, right, I'm going to go along to one of his classes or workshops. So I went along and really liked what he was sharing and how he was communicating and saying, I really appreciate that. So started to go along to some of those workshops, and he started to come to my yoga classes. And then we started to this kind of circling was going over, kind of overlapping of, I was definitely learning from him. And I think he was, learning some stuff from the yoga, and those worlds started to meet more. And he started to develop Embodied Yoga Principles, which was really a refinement and expression of kind of coaching and his facilitation work through the body into some quite crystallized forms that, for yourself and anybody else that's practiced Embodied Yoga Principles, now called Embodied Toolkit, is a super effective way of accessing and developing awareness of how you are, and then being able to change your state through postures and movements and internal inquiry and things. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And wanted to pick up a little bit on being given a name or ordination. So you're ordained as a lay person, right? Because often people might think, oh, you have to be a monk or a nun to have ordination.
Well, it's a little bit more complex. So the guy that founded the order that I'm in, he kind of set it up because at the time there really was this strong split in the world, in the 60s when he created this order. Excuse me. And what he was seeing was like, you were either ordained and you kind of left the world, you're in the spiritual world as such, and you have nothing to do with the world unless you're asking for alms or whatever, or you're involved in the world and you're a lay person or you're a family person, whatever. And there was a real divide and a kind of hierarchy there. And what he felt was kind of needed for the time was actually something whereby you express your commitment to the ideal of enlightenment and the teachings that lead you that way and the community that lead you in that direction. And the lifestyle is secondary or even tertiary. So whether you are a parent, whether you are working out in the world in some way or another, or whether you are a celibate monk or nun or whatever, in a way, those lifestyles are really important and they're big choices. And that's something I wrestled with in my life. At times I wanted to be a monk and other times I really wanted to be in the world. So that's been a struggle in one way or another for me. But yeah, so order members in the tradition I'm in, you're kind of exploring this in the world, but not of it, is the kind of phrase. Yeah. So trying to be in the world, but not of it. But of course, as anybody that knows, if you've got to pay rent or a mortgage or you have a family, you're damn well in the world, and actually there's a lot of learning and practice that happens there. Yes, it might not be so sensitive or subtle as refined as working in the high dhyanic states of meditation the whole time that can happen when you're on longer meditation retreats or leading the monastic life. But also monastic life has its own difficulties as well. I mean, I've been on a 4-month-long retreat as part of the ordination, and that's not an easy life. I think people think, the monastic life is really easy. You try sitting still for 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? You know what it's like. It's not easy, right?
No, in so many monasteries, they, every monastic also has a job. They might be doing the monastery's website or taking guest bookings or cleaning stuff. So they kind of have a worldly job within that usually. And even one of the things that really struck me when I first went to Bhutan, like the last sort of stronghold of traditional Tibetan Buddhism in the world, perhaps, we came to this really like abandoned monastery, or not abandoned, there were monks there, but there was no other people there, on the top of a mountain. And the first thing we saw was 3 young monks sitting, looking at their phones, texting or something. And when we got closer, we could see they were on Facebook. And that was in 2012. So
times have changed, haven't they? I remember
really
seeing this really beautiful moment of when I was in Japan. I think it's 2003, and coming out this beautiful sort of Japanese Buddhist temple, and a similar thing. These kind of this sort of quite souped up jeep pulls out, and these 3 sort of young monks kind of pop out and with their phones and pop into the temple. And it was just this juxtaposition of a 12th century wooden temple with kind of modern life, and that thing is like, oh yeah, this can all exist and coexist, and actually there can be a really creative interplay there as well. Obviously, we know there are dangers there of distraction and disappearing down rabbit warrens of social media and the harm that can be caused in that. And also there's real magic that can be shared and real deep wisdom that can also be shared, as we know, through things like the Embodiment Conference and everything that Embodiment Unlimited do online, etc. So
absolutely. And I think the approach to embodiment that certainly has come through Embodied Yoga Principles and all the other embodiment courses we run, the work that you do is to kind of try and connect those 2 worlds, certainly if it's not spiritual for you, the ethical with the being grounded ethically in your life, to have these tools that you can apply in any whatever life you're in. I've actually taught some nuns. I know Mark's recently taught some nuns in Ukraine on his trauma training there. So I think it's probably getting more and more connected and mixed up. So that, for you, particularly having lots of different things on the go and being a dad. So how do you balance the householder's life with the practice, the spiritual practice?
Yeah, and I think one of the real interfaces and interplays is actually the sharing of some of the practice with people. You know, it's like the meeting with people that are EYP teacher or about to become accredited or whatever, you know, having connections with them and what are they doing, how are they doing it. It is the sharing of yoga meditation online and, you know, being involved in various online teachings and trainings and things of that nature, as well as in-person things. And trying to maintain a regular practice. Now that really goes up and down. You know, sometimes, you know, I'm really doing it and I feel like I've got a finger on the pulse and I'm well connected. And other times, you know, I'm not getting up early in the morning and I'm not doing an embodied practice. And then, you know, a few days in, I'll notice and it's like, oh, do you know what? I need to get up. I need to go for a walk. I need to go for a run. I need to do some EYP and I'm going to have a sit. And Mark and I, we have a regular sit on a Tuesday morning. We sit online together most weeks, unless for some reason we can't or whatever. And try and stay in touch with other people that are practicing, and maybe also doing things more deeply, or go on weekend retreats or things of that nature, and just trying to have regular reflections, but also the everyday things of actually, okay, I'm sitting here now present with you. I'm trying to be aware of my body, trying to be aware of my breathing, you know, make little subtle adjustments to my posture as to, oh yeah, spine lifting, relaxing shoulders, being more aware of you, you know, so trying to use everyday things to be more aware wherever I am and whoever I'm with, to try and make a difference in that way. And I think that whole idea of metta and loving kindness and trying to bring care and kindness into the world, and definitely being a father and trying to practice that and seeing my daughter kind of grow up and trying to listen to her and the, you know, the difficulties she might face with, you know, friends at school or struggling one to another, or also delighting, you know, taking delight in the joy and the playfulness, and her doing handstands and dancing and, you know, doing crazy creative things with her friends and enjoying her friends. You know, I really love actually the community we have around us. We're very lucky. We're at a school in Brighton and Hove which is bilingual. There's partly Spanish and English, which means a big Latino community around as well, which is quite a lot of emphasis of, you know, hanging out together and sharing space, often outdoors and things. So there's that thing of people wanting to connect in community in that sense. So
yeah, that's something we really emphasize as well, isn't that we're not made to live in isolation. So, and also community learning and support is a big part of the courses we run, and your Embodied Yoga Principles training that you oversee and teach on. Yeah, any sort of little tips when you were saying, oh, you know, aware of your spine, shoulders, and I did feel a little shift in my own embodiment. Maybe listeners did too, and your voice changed slightly as well. So just little things like that can really work. Do you have a way other than that one that you might sort of shift to be more present with your daughter or your family? Maybe there's like a knock on the office door and it's a bit of an interruption sometimes. Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is that shift of awareness from, you know, self and what I'm doing and what's important to me at the time or whatever, and going, oh, hold on a second, I need to shift my awareness to them and what their need is and what, you know, what's actually happening there, and to be able to try and go, okay, right. Sometimes I have to go, okay, pause a second, I need to be aware of what's happening, or tell me this, or that, okay, right, or can you pause for a minute whilst I put down this, to be able to then be more present. So I think sometimes it's getting better at saying, okay, look, can you pause a second? I need to actually just finish this. I need to be present with you. I'm interested. I want to know. Just give me a moment. So boundaries, I think that whole thing of boundaries and, you know, what is time for this? What's work time? What's play time? What's rest time? When can we be together and how? And managing that and communicating that. So that's definitely an ongoing practice for sure.
Especially now, right? We're still in the period which may stay that so many of us are working from home after the pandemic or during.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing. It's like literally this morning I was due to go and meet with a new web design client, and she left me a voice message this morning. My Airbnb person has just done a positive test on COVID. Okay, so, you know, oh, can we meet another time, or do we go online? And, you know, a lot of my web design work I do online with people. You know, there's people in the States who do work for Meta, the International Somatic Movement Education Therapy Association, which I love, and various clients all over the world. So it's like you're navigating time zones and working with people I never would have worked with before prior to, you know, I mean, I was doing a bit of that before COVID, but then of course, you know, everybody is so interconnected now through video and audio in this way, and it's fantastic. But yeah, I also now really like that thing of, hey, I'm actually going to go and meet a web design client, or, oh, I'm going to do a coaching session with somebody live in person. It's like, wow, it's multi-dimensional in a different way, you know? Going to trainings and being in a space and just seeing the difference of actually being in the same space together. It's a very different experience, isn't it? And I value both and I appreciate both. And I think I'm really recognizing that actually doing so much work on screen by myself has a detrimental effect. And I need to ensure that I have good quality connected time with living beings in the same non-virtual space in reality. It's different, and being touching, and seeing, being out in nature.
So how do you do that if you say you've got a long day with lots of zooming and website things? Do you have little practices you do to?
Yeah, I will often take a walk. I mean, literally, I've got a little door out here which goes out into, there's a little park around where I live, and I can see the sea in the distance, and there's a little kids' playground, and I will go and I'll maybe do a few push-ups against a thing, or I'll just do a slow walking meditation, or I'll just try and see a horizon. So it takes me away from the little box screen there to far off in the distance. And my coach actually introduced me to a lovely little practice, a guy called Steve Litchfield, great coach, by the way. He shared with me something which I think might be from Andrew Huberman, I'm not sure, where you start with being aware of your body inside, your breathing, with your eyes closed. In fact, you can do this along with me if you're not in a car. If you're not in a car now or not driving or whatever, I'll try and remember the bits. So bring your awareness inside, really feeling your body, having this sense of an internal awareness of you as you are now. Sensing the breathing, sensing what that feels like. And it's a very short practice. And then the next step is to open your eyes and just take your awareness just about, a meter in front, just kind of being aware of what's there in front of you, but still being aware of your body and your breathing. Just sensing there might be a subtle difference there. And then extending a bit further still. So maybe you're then aware of the whole of the room that you're in, if you're in a room. Yeah, and less awareness inside your body, still keeping some awareness there, but it's more about the external awareness. Then in an ideal world, you're actually outside somewhere you can see the horizon. But if you're not, then imagine a horizon in the distance, and then seeing the difference that makes. So, so it's just a subtle kind of gradation of taking awareness outwards into the world. And then, of course, you can suck it back in as well. So that whole practice of in and out. And I quite like doing that on in a regular basis, if it's just stepping out and going, oh, okay, I'm back in. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it reminds me of my Buddhist teacher. I was on retreat at one time and we were mostly practicing in our sort of small bedrooms. And I had a lot going on in my life, which was like on my mind, and it started to feel very claustrophobic. And I sometimes feel a bit like that when I've been on Zoom a lot. It's like I'm trapped in this virtual world and I get a sort of weird feeling inside of some kind of overwhelm, I suppose, or being too full somehow. And he said, go outside, go and practice, look at the horizon, practice outside. And it helped so much. I thought, he was going to tell me something clever about letting go of my ego or whatever. No, just go outside, look at the horizon. and the sky. And I also read that with our eyes, if we're looking at screens a lot, it tends to be short distance. So looking at something far away, like a bird far away, is apparently really good for our eyes.
And also, I think there's something else around going outside in nature within the first hour of the day, preferably when the sun is kind of coming up or whatever, and then at the end of the day as well. And that helps you stay in touch with the circadian rhythms or whatever. Yes. Again, I'm no scientist, haven't done the research, but when I've done that, I have noticed a sense there is a bit of a difference. And I often find I'm waking up early in time with the sun, even if you've got like blackout curtains and things like that. That somehow this being knows that the sun is up and the sun is going down, and I'll be going to sleep a lot earlier than some other people around me for some reason. Blessing and a curse.
Yeah, well, it's probably good if you have a young child, because their body clock seems to know exactly when the sun rises. Even so, it darkened my granddaughter's room here, like, to be almost completely dark, but she's still waking up at about 5 at the minute. So so good, nice things really, and to find ways, I guess, to go with the natural cycles of the body and the seasons, even though a lot of our working life might be a bit artificial just now in any case. Yeah, wonderful. And
will be interesting to see what evolves, won't it, from here, in terms of how much of that, I know lots of people in a way are back in their offices or back in their regular working environments, except for, somebody's ill, right, got to stay off or whatever. But what exactly is going to become the new norm, and how much of staying at home and solo working or whatever is going to be, and how we maintain connection and community in person and online. Interesting to see what evolves there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about managing the virtual work world and parenting and distractions all around. And I wanted to ask you a bit more about your book, Mindful Thoughts for Fathers. How does lovely. He's holding it up if you're listening on audio only. It is advertised on his website. We'll share the web link towards the end as well, vidyadasa.com. Can you tell us a bit more about the book? Because often people ask me, oh God, my kid is driving bonkers. How can I use mindfulness?
I have to say, writing the book was a real delight and a real moment of kind of integration of, what's been going on in my life when I wrote the book. It came out a couple of years ago, and it was a real process of reflection of, okay, what do I actually do, and what actually happens? What does the father go through in that process of becoming a father, and the varying stages, at least. I mean, I guess I was kind of writing up to my level of experience. I think my daughter was about 7 or 8 when it came out. So I could only really speak from experience up until then and imagine beyond then. And yeah, there's various chapters about, you know, when you first know you're about to become a father, and what are the thought processes you go through? What do you become aware of? Your thoughts, your feelings, what are the changes are going to happen in your world, and how, in a way, you haven't got a clue. You don't know what's going to happen until this being comes into the world. Who is this being? How are they? How are they going to behave? And you just don't know. It is that whole being with the unknown and the uncertainty. And of course, that continues all the way through. As soon as you're connected with another being in life, our own life is unknown process. We don't know anything for certain, other than we're born, we're going to die, and we breathe and do a whole load of shit in between. But another being also, and, you know, in most cases, we're in touch and connection with another being that has brought that being into existence as well. So you've immediately got this strong connection between these beings, and sometimes more, particularly also if it, you know, it's been from another form of process of pregnation, etc., etc. There's so many levels and layers of connection. But yeah, I really remember, you know, I'm just looking at the titles of some of the chapters, you know, and the gift of attention. So, you know, giving that gift of attention to your child, and what does that do? What does it do to you? How does it change how you are? And what does it do to them? And I can really see this when I give good quality attention to my daughter. It's like our relationship is very live and vivid and multidimensional. If I'm half present and half looking at my phone or half doing something else, it's like, feels like single layered, you know, single dimension. And just to be that whole rounded gift of awareness, and what you give and receive in that is beautiful. I mean, I received so much from having Francesca and seeing her grow up. And, you know, I was just looking as I was driving along yesterday, I was like, oh my God, she is so tall now. And she's, you know, and just her conversation and seeing this being grow up is a phenomenal thing, you know. And in the Buddhist teachings, there's all sorts of things about this process of becoming. And, you know, obviously we grow, you know, birth, we grow, and then of course we start to decay, and then obviously end up back in the ground or in the sky and somewhere or another. And in between, lots of things happen. But seeing a little being born and go through these stages, and obviously, hopefully seeing many more, it is super intense and difficult. I certainly have had some really difficult times as a father, and a struggle in terms of, you know, paying the mortgage, and is there enough money for this, and we've got to pay for a holiday, and we've got to pay for the cats, and you know, so many things that if I'd led a life that was more monastic, I wouldn't have had to have faced, you know. But maybe there's probably also been a trade-off there as well. You know, I know my life has become more intense, but also kind of richer for the experience of being a father, and I really hope I can share whatever I can with her as well. You know, it's but it's full of its ups and downs, you know, and there's so many things, like the moments of sharing, of kind of walking around at 3 a.m. because she couldn't get to sleep, and her taking her back in, you know, it's in winter, freezing, so wrapped her up really well, and thought, right, okay, right, she looks like she's falling asleep now, so take her back to the flat. And she threw up in the little in this space here in front of my throat. So going back to the house, not being able to get back in, covered in hot vomit here. That was gross. Having to wake up my partner, kind of, let me in, I need a shower. Here, can you hold? Thing. So
funny now, but I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah. It wasn't pleasant. Yeah, you definitely get to deal with the unpleasant side of life, and the poo and all the rest of it. And yeah, seeing the body in its different states, and seeing a being become embodied, and the qualities they bring, and who are they from existence, you know, from the beginning, and that whole nature nurture thing. Because I think I definitely used to think, it's so much about the nurture, you know, is that actually this being is kind of, there are certain things that were there, you know, right from the beginning, or maybe even before. I remember, you know, at the moment of conception, if that's the right term, I knew she came through. I knew very clearly, this just happened. Both me and my partner was just like, something entered the room here. Fuck. literally, and okay, something happened there, and it's like, okay, all right, we're having a baby, right? Okay, it's you know, of course, all the fears and doubts that came with, and I, you know, nearly sort of ran away in my head, and it's like when we knew for certain, it's like, okay, actually, and then it was just love and compassion came out. Yeah. And then all the other bits, but yeah.
And then some vomit, and yeah. Yeah,
and also a lot of creativity. You know, we sometimes paint together, we sometimes write stories together, or enact things together. We sometimes do yoga together, or you know, I have to put my hand up. Probably don't do as much meditation yoga things with her as I could do. I've certainly taught her various little embodiment practices when she's getting stressed. She knows now, okay, when she's stressed or something happens, she'll put her hand on the belly and she'll focus on her breathing. And, you know, sometimes I need to remind her of that. She's had a fall, and other times she'll just go ahead and do it. And that's lovely to see her learn embodied skills and put them into practice, and also give them to her friends. I've seen her kind of do things with her friends. Oh, how long, right? How are you? What's going on? Okay, right. And let's just relax your breathing. What's your belly doing? Okay, you know, and it's like, oh my goodness, yes, fantastic. May there be more beings doing this. And
yeah, oh, that's so cute.
And I've got another friend who teaches his daughter to do things like, okay, put your forefinger on your thumb, breathe in. As you breathe out, put your forefinger up the fingers. You're kind of counting the fingers. We're just breathing, and you're tracing your finger with the fingers of one hand with the forefinger of the other hand, and you're feeling your breathing as you do it. And you do that a few times, and lo and behold, in a way, just that process of giving focus and attention to those bodily sensations, it can calm you down. And of course, it's like everything, the more you do it, the more it becomes a familiar habit, and your being knows, oh yeah, this is what I do to calm down. And then
lovely. Oh, that's a great one for kids, isn't it?
Yeah, really nice. A friend of mine, Alistair, shared that with me and his daughter and my daughter. And
it works on me as well, to be fair, and I'm 50, so I like that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I've learned something new, 2 new things already. Great. So are there some bits like that in the book as well? Some little tips?
Yeah, well, little bits. I mean, in a way, it's more reflections and things to maybe consider. And the publishers didn't want a how-to book. They were quite clear that, right, you don't really want steps and stage of this. I mean, I think that's another book. And if somebody would like to invite me to write that book, I'll happily do it. But it is more reflections. There's short chapters. I think it's like 1,000 words per chapter. There's 25 chapters from things like holidays and hell days, you know, the difficulties of going on holiday with the kids, and also how beautiful it can be. Devices of mass distraction and miraculous invention. So, you know, working with mobiles and tablets and things. Bedtime boundaries, friendship, a true treasure. Family ancestry, you know, thinking back of the influence of your family on you as a parent, and also what you want to bring forward through as well. And that was quite powerful, reflecting on that, you know.
Imagine
my father, my mother, his father, his mother. And recently I was on holiday with my father in Bude, and well, with my family, Bude in Cornwall, where he grew up. And he spontaneously started telling me all sorts of stuff about him. Well, I think I asked him about his childhood, his teenage years, and he told me all these things about kind of growing up there and his whole family things, all sorts of things I didn't know. And it's like, oh, wow, I get that. And oh, that's where that comes from. And so, yeah, really nice to kind of know. So yeah, you know, it's a sweet little book, you know. Being good enough is part of things. And, you know, what are the life lessons we need to learn? I'm not saying this to kind of go, oh, hey, it's all about me, I wrote a book. It's no, actually, there's some little nuggets that are based on seeing other fathers or seeing experience, and hopefully it's a little invitation just to remember to be aware and care. So yeah, I think it's the subtitle they requested was A Journey of Loving Kindness, Mindful Thoughts of Fathers, A Journey of Loving Kindness. And yeah, I try and make it that.
Oh, I'm sure you're great, knowing you Fairly well. I imagine you're a very good dad, and Francesca's very lucky.
Be good enough. Hopefully good enough. Time will
Good
tell. We
enough
will
dad,
see.
yeah. Time will tell.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Oh, also, what a great question to ask a parent. I've been asking my mum a bit more about her past, as it were. My dad unfortunately passed away already. And I'm kind of thinking, yeah, it's so important to ask some of those questions before we lose our parents, inevitably. And it gets great conversations going as well, often. Because otherwise there might be a bit of a tendency to stay with the weather or something like that, or just talking about the grandchildren.
Yeah, and it's fascinating, isn't it? Sometimes what will come forth that we might never have known unless we ask that question.
Yeah.
And it will stay hidden in the consciousness of that being and won't be carried forward into family future. And I think that's a real gift to ask and to learn. I'm really recognizing that. I think when I was an early practitioner of Buddhism, and I was thinking, oh, it's all about leaving the family and letting go, going beyond of the worldly life. And I kind of distanced myself a little bit. And actually now I'm more like, I want to bring them in. I want to know them more, I want to understand them more, I want to be, and try and give to them. I feel very grateful and fortuitous for the gifts they've given me. And I want to be able to give to them. Yeah, sometimes feel a bit ashamed I'm not giving enough. I'm not, I wish sometimes that I'd been a millionaire businessman and had loads of money, go, hey, I'll buy you a house and I'll be, so I have to give in other ways. And but yeah, if anybody's a millionaire out there and you want to donate towards me or have some coaching or build a website, feel free so I can give to my family and give to the world.
Yeah. I think it's kind of always there when we talk about the layers of embodiment that we all have. So one of those layers is ancestral, one is cultural, and one is biological. Of course, there's many layers. And certainly our ancestors are in us, whether we consciously recognize it or not.
Totally. And I don't know if you're I don't know if you've ever had anybody come on here and talk about family constellations at all.
Yeah, more than likely, because I know some of our trainers, at least Patricia Aguirre, one of our trainers, is a specialist in that. So in her podcast, she's probably mentioned that. But,
I just mentioned that because I remember when becoming a father, or soon after becoming a father, I met, or on the way to becoming something in family constellation, so one person will stand here, one will stand there, and they'll represent a certain person in your family or something like that. And then those people speak or behave in a certain way. And just things came up that were connected to people in my history that I knew nothing about. And then I was like, what? How can that be? And I went and had a conversation with my father and found out, oh yeah, that kind of relates to that person. They used to do this. And then I was like, oh my goodness, where on earth did that come from? How, quite a mysterious thing. I don't want to get all woo-woo about it, but sometimes there's things going on at other levels that we don't recognize or can't see, and things come through, don't they? It's
very insightful, that kind of stuff. I find. And on the topic of sort of asking good questions, I know you've recently branched out a bit more into coaching as well. We've both been on coaching and facilitation trainings together, so I know you have those skills, but I noticed that recently you're promoting that a bit more. So love to hear a bit about that. So
so I mean, back, obviously sort of learning Embodied Yoga Principles with Mark, from whenever it was, 2014 or whatever, obviously there's a really strong influence of coaching and somatic coaching and embodiment coaching in that right from the get-go. And I've been really fascinated by that and found it really effective in working with groups and one-to-ones, and also in coaching in my websites. I end up coaching when I'm doing websites sometimes. I feel like that's a coaching process as well. But I felt like I wanted to learn, weirdly in a way, almost not do a kind of embodiment coaching thing as well. So I kind of knew what is kind of regular coaching and what is embodiment coaching. And then I could know, okay, what's the difference and how do they influence one another? What is somatic coaching? What is not? And yeah, I have to say, I absolutely love coaching and really fascinated by what it can bring out in people and the changes that can happen. And I really appreciate receiving. I receive regular coaching as well, and how it can make shifts in people's life through that, particularly if you're having regular sessions with people and you've got something you're moving towards over a period of time, etc., or it's just an open-ended ongoing thing. That whole being seen, being heard, and developing useful qualities in your everyday life, and somebody witnessing that and being a supportive kind of container, confidential container that, in a way, you know, a family member or a friend, yeah, they might be able to do bits of that, but, you know, they're not trained in a professional way to kind of have the experience. And yeah, I think I just more and more really value what coaching can give, and also what I receive through giving and receiving. So yeah, been turning towards doing more coaching and really enjoying that, and with a few areas of specialism, you know, whether it's working with people in an embodied way, and also for creatives that are looking to explore various things and have some support in their expression of creatives. So working with writers and artists and dancers, performers. And I've loved bringing the Embodied Toolkit also into workshops in colleges and things as well. That's been a lovely process, and festivals and things. But yeah, and so it's just that, again, kind of going full circle in that sense of that listening and seeing and witnessing and creativity and connecting with community in the various methods that we do, whether it's one-to-one or in groups. And recently started a podcast called the Creative Process Podcast, where I'm having conversations with people who might be any of those things. They, you know, like we've interviewed Tess Howell, who is a kind of ritual practitioner and kind of dancer, writer, and painters, and I've got all sorts of people lined up to have conversation with, to see, well, actually, what is their process for creativity? Where did it come from? Where does it take them to? What are they giving to the world? And what do they receive from it? And it is part of a bigger picture. Long term, I'm brewing up a book as well, and some online trainings and courses, of course, and in-person courses and trainings around the creative process, because it's been such a strong thread in my life, and I find it fascinating and I love it. And there's always something bubbling up with creativity. I think part of me feels if I'm not creating, I'm kind of dying, I'm destroying, decaying. Yeah. You know, I'm sure that's, in a way, all of us, unless we're creative in our life, you know, part of us is dying in a way. Don't really be too morbid about it, but I think there is something in that. You know,
I think so too. And I've kind of been a bit surprised myself sometimes about how creative I can be in my facilitation work, yoga teaching, you know, coming up with weird and wonderful relaxation ideas, and sort of spontaneously making up meditations.
Yeah.
I call it sort of improv meditation.
Yeah.
To respond to the moment, to the people I'm with, the situation. So it's really valuable to have those creative skills applied in whatever we're doing with our embodiment work. And as you say, coaching comes in handy. Informal coaching comes in handy in lots of ways. Just being able to ask good open questions is a fantastic skill.
Totally. Yeah, no, I think that thing you're talking about, the kind of whole creativity that can arise through those particular conditions, you know, and I've seen that in you. I've seen that in Mark. knowing myself, and other facilitators where it's just those conditions come together and the little spark of inspiration goes off, and when you trust in that moment to go with the inspiration, and something completely new is going to come out, and you've gone down a different journey than you were going to, and it's like, wow, okay, if I hadn't trusted that, then we probably would have been in a completely different place. And of course, being willing to change journey and check in with that person, all the other facilitation skills that come in, and in a way that ability only arises through practice, doesn't it? Through the 20-30 years of whatever practice you've been doing, to know that, okay, if I do this, that can arise, learn, here's the safety around it as well, put your little health and safety hat on, and sometimes you take it off and go, right, okay, we're going over here, all right, let's put it back on again, right, it's all good, knowing your boundaries and what's capable, what's possible and what's not, and being willing to take a risk and not be too safe. But again, it's knowing ourselves. Like, I know I can tend to be all bit cautious. Mark knows about me. When we're teaching together, it's like I'm the cautious one, the watery feeling one, and he's the fiery one, kind of pushing edges, whatever. But when I'm not teaching with him, often I'll fill in more of that gap. It's that tendency of what we fill in, or if I'm working with somebody else, and I suppose that thing of people knowing certain aspects of you, and also you bringing out certain qualities in certain contexts, because some people will know me as this crazy, wild, creative character does this, and other people will know me as it's always very safe, all contained, and it's like, I can trust he's not going to do something crazy. And it's like, oh, that's one Vidyadasa, that's another Vidyadasa, and sometimes they meet and crazy shit happens, but that's
really testament to building range and being able to respond appropriately and helpfully in lots of circumstances, isn't it?
Yes. And I just want to publicly rejoice. Sorry, I'm giving a rejoicing you without requesting consent. I really enjoyed seeing you build all these sorts of other qualities and expressions in your teaching and being, and it's like all sorts of different layers and levels of kind of come into being, and I just
thank you.
Probably shouldn't be doing this live on air, but I really appreciate seeing you becoming who you are in your fullness and what you bring to the world. So it's a pleasure knowing you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's lovely to hear. We have this thing on our courses where you don't give feedback, including positive feedback, without asking first. But I'm very happy to receive that.
I broke the rule.
That's fine. The crazy Vidyadasa came out for a minute, but this is also more of a normal conversation, isn't it? I know we're recording it, but it's not within that structure. So that's just lovely to hear. And we're kind of coming up to the hour. So you've already shared some lovely tips with us. People can find out about your yoga and meditation and embodied yoga principles stuff on vidyadasa.com. And Vidyadasa is spelled Vidyadasa, or you can look at the course notes, it will be there. And the book is on there. The coaching site is beingyounow.co.uk, and the web design is on createwebdesign.org. So you can find and contact him through either any of those sites anyway. I'm sure you can use his yoga email to ask about coaching, etc. We usually conclude with any final tip or embodied wisdom thing you can give us.
Okay, so sense into your body now. What do you feel? What do you know about your actual experience right now? And ask yourself if you can accept how you are now. or if there's something positive within your experience that you can bring into being by giving attention to it. So it isn't always easy to accept yourself. Maybe giving some attention to something positive you would like to bring into life. And you can do that physically. That helps by putting two hands in front of you and just going, okay, what do I want to give out? Or bring a hand to your heart and bring a hand out. So connecting with yourself and then taking that out. How am I and what can I give? A couple of little options there.
Nice. I often do something like that in the mornings, and it's also a mini version of our UIP, Embodied Yoga Principles, Embodied Toolkit, postures, giving and receiving. So thank you, Vidyadasa. It's been lovely to talk to you, because it's actually been a little while, so really great to connect. Lots of lovely tips and information there, things to mull on and think over. So on behalf of our listeners and the Embodiment podcast team, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you. Really enjoyed getting to see you and hear you again. Yeah, may you all be well and happy.
Likewise.